Welcome into the Or Hughes podcast, a Bay Area sports podcast. And we put a heavy focus on the Oakland A's because we are all about timing here at Or Hughes, picking a good time to launch a podcast that has a heavy focus on the Oakland A's when they are the worst team in baseball, have the worst record in baseball by a big margin, and also talking about moving out of town. So, make sure you listen to us because we obviously know what we're doing here. But Rick, we have been focused on this Oakland A's team that we're kind of getting to that point in the season where each week the story seems to be about the same. The team's still not getting a lot of wins, but there are some young players that are worth talking about that are doing something notable on not just a local level, but just a league-wide level. And so we want to get into that. We want to get into Ryan Noda and Esteury Ruiz. We want to get into kind of the adjustment period that Brent Rooker and guys like JJ Bleday are going through, and the emergence of Nick Allen. And of course, we're going to talk about the latest with the A's situation and, the potential window that exists for the A's to stay in Oakland and some developments that are happening in Vegas and stuff that's going to happen this week that could maybe kind of keep the window open a little bit more for the A's having a chance to stay in Oakland. But we're going to start with the team before we get into the stadium situation and kind of more of the same. It's like the margin of error for this A's team is razor thin. So even when they play kind of a competitive game like we saw on Saturday against the Astros, they're right there in it. And it's one bad pitch kind of derails everything, or they're just not good enough to have any kind of margin of error where we can miss an opportunity. You have to take advantage of each and every one because that's kind of where they are with their talent level right now.
No, I'm back to the negative mood, I guess,
Yeah.
today. But it's
Switching
been a
roles
little,
back. Yeah.
yeah, it's been a little frustrating, as a fan, because the point of this is entertainment, and you are seeing some good baseball, you are seeing some good things here or there, but you're still just seeing a lot of losses. And as a fan, when you tune in as something that this is supposed to be something I enjoy, like nobody enjoys losing and nobody enjoys watching them continue to lose. So that part continues to be frustrating. I know we were joking about, hey, this is the time to start the A's podcast, right? But how without blah blah blah, without this time, like the A's haven't been getting national attention, right? And
Yeah.
now with this kind of thing, they are kind of getting national attention. So we're out at the forefront of it, so that's what I was going to say with that when I
No, I
couldn't
mean,
find my words.
you're right. I mean, I sent you the link. Is the guys from Barstool Sports were even jumping on this. You're seeing national podcasts, the DA show, talking about this, and it's getting a lot of attention. And I think what's important is when the A's are getting national attention for their stadium situation, that it's no longer that low-hanging fruit that we've been talking about in other podcasts where everyone's just like, well, the fans aren't showing up. They need this, blah, blah. It was just kicking a dead horse for so many years, a decade, 2 decades of just going with this narrative over and over and over again. And now the way things have gone with the threat of the A's actually leaving for Vegas, everyone's kind of looking in this, coming to the same conclusion. It's not the fans. It is the owner. It is the ownership and the way that they are doing things. And you just go down this list and check off, all of the bad things that they are doing are leading to people not showing up. And we had 2 games this last week that drew just over 2,000 fans. I even talked to somebody who worked for the A's, and they said that there was probably closer to 1,400 people that were actually there at one of those games that I think had an attendance number of just over 2,000. I think it was like 2,049. And he said it was probably around 1,400 people that were actually there for the game.
I was listening to Tuesday's game on A's Cast, and the stadium just sounded empty. I don't know who was pitching, but it was either a wild pitch or a pass ball, but it went all the way to the backstop, and you heard every part of it. There was no fan noise covering any of that up. So,
We need some
but
controversy so we can have like a John Boy thing, because he won't even have to do the lip reading. He'll just be able to just hear it on the
yeah,
mics. Yeah.
everything right there is like edit that out, edit that
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
censor that. Yeah. No, it's been more of the same. I will say though, because I like to watch a little soccer here on the side too. I've been seeing a lot of the A's hats And one was at the Manchester City Real Madrid game. And then I had a couple buddies watching the Liverpool Aston Villa game, and they sent a picture. They caught a fan out there in A's gear. So you definitely can't say the A's don't have fans. The A's have fans worldwide. And so
You don't even have to go that far back to think about it. I mean, I think it was earlier this week I heard Jesus Luzardo talking about his favorite moment in the big leagues was 2019 pitching in that wild card game in Oakland against the Rays. And I mean, the A's obviously lost that game, but he talked about that atmosphere. I was there covering that game. When the A's are good, the fans show up and they pack that Coliseum. We've heard guys like Justin Verlander, a future Hall of Famer, talk about the environment inside the Coliseum when you've got 60,000, ravenous fans waving towels and going crazy. That atmosphere doesn't exist in a bubble. It has to be nurtured. You have to do something from the ownership side. And this is the opposite of that.
No, absolutely. And we've always been saying that, I think, every podcast, that the fans will come if you give them something to go for, whether that's a competitive team and we know that they'll get there and they'll pack the Coliseum, or we started saying give some, discount baseball. And we have seen the A's give some discount baseball with that summer package, right? With like $99 for almost 40 games or something. Yeah. It's less than that now. But I don't think it was as popular as they were hoping, right? Because the initial email was like, hey, there's going to be a wait list. And then they were saying, hey, this is only available for a limited time. But the other side of that is I don't think fans are as eager to rush in knowing that, there's still this threat of them leaving. And you're still going to go pay for the second most expensive hot dog in all of Major League Baseball, according to USA Today, at almost $8 for a hot dog, where Costco is going to give you that thing and a soda for $1.50 there. So, you're getting a discount seat, but they're still charging you $30 to park, and they're still charging you the second most expensive hot dog in the league. So, no, we're definitely seeing that. And then I think the other thing we're seeing from the ownership group is what's going on in Vegas. All of a sudden, it was a sure thing. They were moving, and we were all upset. We were all kind of in mourning, talking about how the community's in mourning and finding a community, getting together with people just to kind of feel a little better. Then that deal fell through. Now there's another deal coming up, but there's still about $200 million away. So what is going on?
Yeah, we were talking about this kind of as a joke a couple weeks ago, that the A's are really trying to give the people of Las Vegas the full ballpark saga experience and cram it all into 1 year rather than stretch it out over 20 years. But it's really interesting because everything the A's have done in Vegas really backs up the idea that this was not their plan when things fell apart with Oakland. They had that week-long negotiation session plan, and after like the first day, I think it was coming into day 2, the A's called up, the mayor and let them know, hey, we're doing this land deal. We've got this binding in quotes has been the deal we've heard from the A's, that we've got this land deal in Vegas. We wanted you to know about it. And I really think they were trying to use that as leverage to try and get their deal done. And they weren't anticipating that Oakland was ready to walk away and did not want to negotiate with a gun to their head under the threat of this. And they walked away and they ended the negotiation right then and there. And the A's then had to go to scramble mode because now they've got, oh man, we've actually got to put a plan together in Vegas. We weren't ready for that. And everything they've done since then backs up the idea that they were not ready for that. Their first land site where they had the idea of like, okay, we're going to build it here. We're still going to do the entertainment site. Well, that's gone because like a week later, they announced another binding agreement at a different site. And what's happened now, the A's have gone from, we're going to build housing and hotels and a concert venue and build this whole complex, to, yeah, no, we're going to be good with just 9 acres and we're going to find a way to somehow build this tiny little stadium and it'll be fine. We'll be fine just having the stadium, not having an entertainment district, not having these other things around to support it, and just making a much smaller investment. And to your point, the A's were reportedly $88 million apart on that complex in Oakland that was going to have a stadium and hotels and, have the concert venue there. That all fell apart that week with the A's announcing their first binding land deal. Now, with their new agreement at the Tropicana site, they're going to build on 9 acres a proposed $1.5 billion stadium. Just a stadium, just a ballpark, nothing else. Everything else is going to be controlled by the group that owns that site, and the A's are just going to be like a feature on that site and just have the ballpark. And now the sides are about $200 million from what we heard apart. Everything that the A's have done, I think, should make the people of Las Vegas, the citizens and the legislature, concerned that, hey, get your plan together and come and see us. And don't put the onus on us that it's like, hey, we got this. If you act quickly, you can get a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, I think, by looking at the two paths and the parallel paths and going out there to Vegas, I think the feeling was that they were really wanted in Las Vegas. And then when they've kind of made that announcement, now that they're kind of finding out, I agree with you that it's kind of making it seem like that wasn't really the play they wanted to do, and they probably overplayed their hand. And we're seeing that with that late announcement for these summer deals for, $99 to see almost 40 games. And still with that announcement, hearing that this stadium's got less than 2,000, and I didn't see it, but you can hear it on the radio. It is just empty out there. So I think now, they're trying to do whatever they can to cut their losses. And the thing is to hear the mayor of Oakland would still reopen negotiations. And if they did, those $99 tickets would be gone like that.
Yeah, I mean, if the A's really did give an indication that they were looking to stay, people would be definitely more invested. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to stay away from the A's until they have a different ownership group. I think there's a lot of people that really feel burned by this current ownership group and, kind of the double speak that we've heard from Dave Cavill and John Fisher. Well, not from John Fisher because we never hear from him, but in that same vein, I think there's a lot of people that are going to stay away. And that is why I'm really excited for the reverse boycott that's still planned for June 13th to pack that in. I think it will have an even bigger impact when you've seen how small these crowds are, that the fans are really flexing their voice. They're going out there with, they're announcing 2,000. Is it really 1,400? And all of a sudden, if the A's do have one of those days on June 13th with this reverse boycott, when even if it's 20,000 and you don't even sell out and you're not able to, really get 60,000 out there, but you got 20,000, that is really going to show that the A's fans are here, that they can support this, that they're ready for this. And that what they've been saying, we are not the problem here. And that you're coming to a place where Major League Baseball, with their commissioner, Rob Manfred, whose job is to defend the owners. That's his job. He's not on your side. He's on baseball side, but really he's on the owner side. That's who he works for. But you're going to show him that, hey, despite everything that you've been saying, it is not the A's fans that are the problem here. It is not the city of Oakland that is the problem. And now it's not going to be Vegas and Clark County that's the problem. You have gotten this where you're looking around and be like, well, what is the problem here? What is it? What is the common denominator that's a problem that's keeping this product from flourishing in the city? And you're going to have no other conclusion to be like, it's the guy that we made owner. It's the guy that we put in, kind of with Bud Selig's frat buddy and not really in the best interest of what a team in Oakland should be having. And you're coming to this conclusion that, John Fisher's getting to the point where it's like, hey, are you sure you're able to be an owner? Do you really want to do this? Because it's come to put up or shut up time with your finances. And you are consistently being like, you know what? I got to look at this other deal over here. Checks in the mail. Just give me a second. I got to move some money around. I'm not liquid.
Yeah, no, you wonder what people's end result is, right? And obviously, ownership and fans have different goals and what people want, right? As fans, we make the assumption that the point of owning a sports team is to go win a championship.
No, it's about making money.
That is exactly what it's about. And sometimes fans are really lucky where they have an ownership group that makes the money, and sports are a very lucrative business. And on top of that, they want to win, right? And it's almost like those two things go together. Like if you're winning, people will be more invested and maybe you'll make more money. I don't know. I've never owned a sports team. But what I think we see with John Fisher is that no, his goal is not winning. He's had a winning team where if you took like the and I'm not even talking about going back to 2012, 2013, 2014, not even Donaldson, but I'm just saying if you take the A's top guys from like 2016 to about 2020 and you kept those top guys, what kind of lineup would the A's be putting out there right now? So if you wanted to win, you would have held on to a whole lot of those guys. There are at least 5 all-stars out there. And so that's clearly not what the goal is, and you can see it with the quality of the team that's currently out there. So maybe that you say the argument's been, well, I've been waiting for the new stadium, I've been waiting for the new stadium. No, you haven't, because look what's happening. You keep saying, oh, I have a stadium, I have a stadium. No, you don't. So it's just, what is John Fisher's goal here? And it seems to be making money, which he's doing anyway. From what the team is worth now, from what he invested in when he bought into it, it's gone up exponentially. And it's just so frustrating as a fan to know that you have no control about it. He has all this control and he doesn't care about winning and he doesn't care about staying in the city.
How much is John Fisher going to need to be given by a city to build a ballpark and to get a deal done and to actually move a project forward beyond just renderings on a piece of paper? And latest in Vegas, he's been given the land. He's got it for free. And they're going to do about $180 million of improvement on the site. In addition to that, the A's want to build a $1.5 billion ballpark. And they are looking for about $500 million. Now it's kind of come down to about $400 million, and they're still about $200 million apart, where now they're going to need that from the county to try and fund this. And rightfully so, the county is concerned about the same thing that the city of Oakland was concerned with, that if there is a gap in the tax district and the bond measures that are being talked about with this, who's going to be on the hook? And here in Oakland, the city and the city councilors had done a good job trying to make sure that everything they did protected the general fund, that if there was a shortfall in that tax district, that it would fall on the A's. And Clark County and the city of Vegas wants to make sure that same thing happens, because they don't want to be on the hook for what could potentially be a shortfall in the kind of revenue the A's are hoping will be generated by a new ballpark, and that will be able to prove that will be generated by their ballpark and not because other people are already coming to Vegas, and they're not going to get the same deal that the Raiders did. And concerning, I think, to the people of Vegas is they've already had to dip into the fund that was the backstop for these new monies that they were putting forward for Allegiant Stadium. And that was because of the pandemic and people not being able to show up in the stadium, not being able to generate any revenue. But to protect their tax base, they had to build and fund money that could then be put towards that shortfall. They already did that with the Raiders. They don't want to do it again with another team like the Oakland A's, especially because the Oakland A's have a track record of, like you said, not investing money into their team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's try and switch this around and let's focus on the team. So we are almost at the half. Well, we're beyond
past the quarterway mark. Yeah,
we're beyond the halfway point to the All-Star break. So yeah, the quarterway point. So who is your halfway All-Star?
Oh, it's Brent Rooker.
What we've seen.
Yeah, it's Brent Rooker.
It's got to be Rooker, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you had 2 All-Stars.
Yeah.
Who are your All-Stars?
Well, the A's will get 1 All-Star, right? Like every team gets
Everybody
one.
gets one.
Everybody gets one. Yeah, it's like Spider-Man saves. Everybody gets one. And so Brent Rooker right now is going to be your All-Star. He's clearly been the best player on the team. He's an interesting guy because right now he's going through a little bit of the adjustment. He was so hot last month, and teams are attacking him a little different. They're really challenging him inside, like we've seen the Astros do. How is he going to handle that adjustment? Is he going to kind of come back to the mean and come back to earth a little bit? Yeah, probably. And that's what we're seeing right now. So Brent Rooker is your all-star. There's two other good players that you can kind of count on right now. It's Ryan Noda and Esteury Ruiz. And we've gotten a chance to see a lot of the Ruiz run coming to fruition. And the A's are stacking that lineup right now with, hey, we got to have Ruiz leading off. Noda, you're going to be second unless we're facing a tough lefty. And then it's going to be Brent Rooker. Those are the three guys that they really feel they can count on. And on Saturday's game against the Astros, we should have had two Ruiz runs. He got on base with a single, stole second. A throwing error allows him to take third. You got Ryan Noda, one of your best hitters up at the plate. He's just got to put the ball in place. One, he did. The A's got the easy run. The second one, he winds up striking out, expanding the zone a little high, and that has been a problem for him with the strikeouts. But, what you're wondering is, after those three guys, who can establish themselves in this lineup? Because you're getting J.J. Bleday getting a lot of opportunity. Nick Allen getting a lot of opportunity. Who are the guys that are going to come next? Because it's every week we talk about it. It's Ruiz, it's Noda, it's Rooker, and a big giant question mark.
Mm-hmm. So let's say the rules were a little bit different and you get to take one all-star, and that's Rooker, and you get one all-star pitcher. Who's your pitcher? Who's going?
Plays for another team.
Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one pitcher.
I'd say at that point,
let's say those were the rules.
Yeah, at that point, I would say it'd be JP Sears. I think he has kind of established himself as the most consistent starter the A's have had, and maybe their most consistent pitcher. It's been tough on this bullpen. The A's just lost Zach Jackson for an injury. He's going on the injured list probably for at least 4 weeks. They were hoping that Trevor May, Zach Jackson, and Danny Jimenez were going to be your back of the bullpen, and that was going to shorten the game. All three of those guys on the injured list. And who would you say is another guy that the A's have established? I don't really know. I mean, it's been up and down, and I think you've seen some good things. Luis Medina has had 2 strong starts in that Mason Miller role because he was by far the best pitcher the A's have had before he got hurt. But I'd say for me, it's going to be, I'll steal the easy answer and force a tougher one on you, because I would say it's JP Sears. But when you're watching this, Rick, is there a guy that you feel most confident when the A's put him out there that this is our best chance for a win this turn through the rotation?
Waldachek is just kind of up and down, but I feel like he's getting some W's, but I would no way say,
well, he's not getting W's because nobody's
getting W's, right? But there's no way I'd go like, yeah, he'll be our all-star here, The pitching has just been really rough. I'm with you. Probably Rooker is the guy, and if I had an alternate, it would be Ruiz, just because he's so exciting. I think Noda is really productive. I just Ruiz is just so fun to watch, so that's the part that I would enjoy. He's got kind of that highlight reel factor. So that's what I would probably say for that. My next question kind of moves away from the all-star category and goes, what do we do with Shintaro Fujinami? What's the next move?
I think the next move is they're going to leave him in the bullpen right now. They've invested, for the A's, quite a bit of money into him. And they want to keep that relationship going because you do see the talent. You do see how quickly it falls apart, and they're trying something new. And, we kind of gloss over the transition that he's making from Japan to the American leagues because you're trying to see how that skill set translate to the big league game. But part of the difference is how those guys prepare and how they think through it. And, I saw a couple interesting pieces as the A's have been working with Fujinami in these sessions where what they're having him think about when he's on the mound. He used to be about where the pitch went and following where that went and thinking about it. Now he's trying to repeat a process and focus on his movement and focus on repeating that movement and executing that pitch all the way through from when it leaves his fingertips. Because once it's done that, it's no longer in his control, and that you've given up control about that. So you think about it all the way until it's out of your hand. And then, it's God's good graces and Shea Langelier's mitt. And that's really what they're trying to get him to do. And so you got to think about him, despite his 10 years of experience, like this is a rookie, and you're going to ride some of those ups and downs because, yeah, has he been maybe the worst pitcher in the A's this year? Yeah, other than the way that James Caprillion started the season. But I think they're going to ride out Fujinami. And for better or for worse, it's because they're so bad that they can. Because you only have 10 wins, like at some level, ideally for the A's, they were hoping that Fujinami would establish himself in some role and maybe make himself a trade chip. Because you talked about the All-Star. The trade deadline's been pushed back, into the last CBA. It's now later in the year. But you're hoping at some point that you've got some of these veteran guys that maybe aren't going to be around become attractive trade chips because it's going to be about youth. So is that Jesus Aguilar? Does Jace Peterson or Letmus Diaz become something that another team would be interested in it? I mean, if Trevor May comes back, could he reestablish himself in a role that you might be able to trade him later in the year and get some interesting pieces back? Right now, you look at the veterans, we've talked about their struggles. I would say that minimal interest at best from another team, that you'd be basically giving these veterans away.
Who else do you think could be traded away for pieces that may be a little more under the radar?
Maybe Ramon Laureano, as a guy that you could consider. I mean, another guy they might think about, which is kind of the wild card, is a guy that's caught fire and really been a rock star for the A's, is Carlos Perez, the catcher, who was an afterthought. They thought it was going to be Manny Pena and Langoliers, and Carlos Perez has forced the issue with what he's done with his bat and the way he's handled defense, and looked really good as a solid major leaguer. Almost every team would love to have a solid catcher, and so I don't know how much you'd get for him, but that's
and his versatility. He's a catcher at first base, and he's even a pitcher. Pitched. Yeah. So don't forget about that. He's your go-to guy.
Is there any? I was just going to ask you, is there anybody beyond, the big three for the A's that you get excited to watch? And when I say the big three, I'm just talking about Rooker and Ruiz and Noda as those guys that have really kind of stood out. Because even a guy like Langoliers, his biggest impact so far this year has been the way he's thrown out runners, because his bat has been up and down and hasn't been what we saw at the end of last season that made you really excited for this guy.
Bleday looks like he's got potential to kind of make that a big four. And then, seeing Nick Allen hit that jack the other night, that made me really excited. We know he's got a glove there. If he can get that bat turned on, and not that you're expecting Nick Allen to be your power hitter, but, right. As long as he can get that bat turned on and, get those balls put in play. When I was watching Nick Allen come up, it kind of seemed for a little bit, just have him bunt, that's his best shot. And hopefully it's going to move somebody over, even with no one on, just have him bunt. Maybe he can leg it out. So, that's not what you really can be relying on at major league hitting. So I got really excited seeing him hit that dinger there. So it would be great to see him come along. And then I guess, I think Bleday has the potential to get into that Noda, Ruiz, Rooker conversation.
Yeah, and I know he's going through the adjustment period right now himself, but I'm going to put this out there. A ranking of the most fun Bay Area athletes present to say. Number 1, Sharks goalie Capo Kakoken. Number 1 on my list of fun names to say. Number 2, JJ Bleday. Hey, Bleday.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't even think I could say the Sharks name one, and I'll have to work on this. I know this is a Bay Area sports podcast, so
I'll tell you what, that one was one that was like, when you're doing updates on the air and you've got to read a name, like when the Sharks traded for him and you look at that name, it's like that SNL sketch when it was Chance the Rapper as the Knicks reporter has to cover as like covering the hockey reporting, and he's like, so that's gonna be like 4 vowels, and that answer is gonna be a no. Like, you're like, I'm not reading that on the air live. I'm gonna have to go off and check that. Like, I remember when the 49ers got Kyle Juszczyk, and you're like, oh, it looks like the 49ers have signed a new player, and we'll tell you about that in the next update when I figure out how to say his last name.
Esteury Ruiz. When I have it, I'm on. It's like a streak, and then if I go cold, then I fumble it bad. So
when you've got to like have something that's like a trigger to kind of get you back into rhythm with it, is like, for me, I've got to hear Ken Korak do it. because he
Yeah.
does it really well. And like the key is you have to finish saying este and
Mhm.
not try to like roll into the other sounds. And then the hard part is because it ends with the R sound, restarting an R sound because you can't roll into the double R. At least I can't.
Well, kind of on that, going to fun names to say because I know you just dug that out of the garage, but the old Mother's Cookies Oakland
Yeah.
A's ball cards and finding the pack that had Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, and of course, Geronimo Baroa.
I would say of the great Roy Steele calls, as we were a kid and you were in there and it was part of the ballpark experience, there were two names that always stood out to me. I mean, like there were great names. He did a great job with all of it, but it was Geronimo Baroa and Mike Bordick. And
Hmm.
just the way that he finished off and like really hit the emphasis on like the K sound and like Mike Bordick. It like really hit it. Like I remember that like distinctly, you know?
He does a good job of making the silence between the names really
Yeah.
stand out. And it's really loud silence.
I'll give you another good one, which was Ruben Sierra.
That's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
I mean, those three, like, beyond just like who they were on the field, you know, and like, because obviously you want to hear Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco. And like, if all things were equal and you didn't look at these stats or like where they were, I would say that those names come to mind. And like, even a name like Scott Brocious is another name that I
I
think of.
almost said it. It was right.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, three's enough. We'll move on. And
Yeah.
yeah, right there.
Yeah, we'll have to work on our list and see if anybody else has any good names because there have
I'm
been
sure
some
there are.
great ones.
Yeah,
But yeah, those are ones that, like, off the top of my head, all things being equal, those are the names. But number one, definitely Geronimo Baroa at the top of
yeah,
that list.
without a doubt.
Geronimo Baroa.
No, for sure. And I remember back in the day too, like the giveaways. I know I got the Chris Davis giveaway bat where it's, a pine color bat and then they've got like painted on the A's emblem. But back in the day, I got a green wood bat. The
Yeah.
whole bat was green and it was Oakland A's was painted on in yellow. That was a really cool giveaway.
Yeah, that was there were some great giveaways. The Mother's Cookie ones were interesting because they were the trading cards. So each pack had like you would have like 3 or 4 of one player, and then the next pack
Hmm.
would have like 3 or 4 of a different player. And the idea was like, all right, well, I'm going to trade you, this Mike Magnante for, your Geronimo Baroa, and you're going to give it up. But I don't think anybody really did that. Like, so you just wound up with this pack where you've got like 4 skinny Jeremy Giambis, like.
Well, and then they were giving them away like they give away these little like pendant things now. So
Right.
if you
Yeah.
didn't get it one time, you're like, oh, I'll get it next time.
I think
It's
I've
more
got like
cards.
3 or 4 of those packs here at the house and
Wow.
everything like
Wow.
that. Like, yeah. And
Nice.
because, like you said, they gave them away like those little pendants and everything like that. So I would love to see the A's bring back some of those. The other one that I would like to see is the score cards that you could get for each game. Like, how cool would
Mhm.
that be to just like think back in the day when you've got your kid there? I mean, even in these games when there's only 2,000, to have that scorecard when it's like your little kid handwriting and then go back and like look through what that game was and see those names. Like for you and me, it would have been going out and seeing like Ken Griffey Jr. and like, Tino Martinez, Edgar Martinez, and Jay
Mhm.
Buhner facing an A's lineup with Ricky Henderson or something like that. And just having your little kid handwriting in there with like E6.
Yeah,
Like,
Shohei Ohtani. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they spelled Shohei wrong.
yeah, yeah. I think that kind of stuff I think would be really cool. But we're A's fans, so we have to settle for the fact that hey, they actually did a giveaway with a player this year, and that was a bold move to have Tony Kemp on a poster and assume that you're going to have a player long enough to give something away rather than just do like a generic old school bobblehead because that's all you can count on.
Have they done that in your memory where they've had a player giveaway and then the player wasn't on the team by the time the giveaway came? Because
Dude, that
I
is
feel like
yeah.
that's happened.
That's happened a bunch of times. I don't have a specific one for the A's that I have to go through and like think about it, but I'm sure that it has happened for the A's. But that happens with a lot of teams, like,
Mm.
and I even remember there was some nights where like I think it was like Billy Koch had something going on with like the Marlins when he was like with the Marlins, and he was supposed to have like he had hosted a day where he had brought like the Boys and Girls Club out and like bought out a section to bring in that fan. And then he got like released by the team before that day came. And so he like showed up as a fan, still came to the game and like sat in the outfield and like heckled his former teammates with like the Boys and Girls Club, you know.
I can believe that about Billy Koch, from listening to the Vince Cotroneo, Where Are They Now? He is a self-admitted, a kind of blue collar, get out there
Yeah.
kind of guy. So I can see him going, okay, you're going to let
Yeah.
me go. I'm showing up and I'm going to let you know. So
I paid for these tickets and I'll be there.
yeah. What, are you going to kick me out of here too?
Yeah. No, I think you're right though about this current team. Is like Nick Allen is the guy we're watching right now because Ruiz, Noda, Rooker established. Everything else you're looking for those young guys, whether that's Luis Medina grabbing a rotation spot because there was talk that maybe he was going to wind up as a closer and a bullpen guy because of his control issues, but he's really locked that down and hasn't been walking a lot of people, knock on wood, there in his last 2 starts and looked very strong in those outings. JP Sears looks like a guy that's really kind of grabbed a rotation spot because there were talk coming into the season that he would be a guy working as maybe a long man out of the bullpen. And they've been, good. And James Caprillian's going to get another chance this week to show he can bounce back and, really be the guy that everyone was hoping for at the beginning of this season. So those are the things you watch. Nick Allen, the way that he's emerged and kind of been the A's best hitter coming off of this homestand, getting an opportunity where he's getting a chance to play every day and not just, hey, go out there and we'll see about tomorrow. It's like, hey, you get a day off, but don't worry about it. You're only getting 1 day off. You're going to be back out there, bud, because your glove is that good. You need your defense. And as your bat is going to keep you in the lineup when you're hitting, you don't have to hit 425 each week. Don't worry. The pressure's not going to be that intense, but you also can't hit 90.
And I'm sure it does a lot for the confidence and, like you said, the pressure too, which we kind of were talking about at the beginning of the year with the pitchers kind of dealing with a lot of pressure and feeling like they had to be perfect. And, you can't help but feel that's got to be similar for some of the hitting and for Nick Allen, especially knowing that he's already gone back down, where you kind of start feeling that pressure each at bat where I've got to make something happen, got to make something happen. And you don't get to go out there and just really relax where, with hitting, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, but you look at a guy like Chris Davis, who hitting, he was just phenomenal at it. And then, fielding, he really struggled with throwing the ball. And part of it,
That's putting it mildly.
Just, yeah, right. Yeah. And but he just said, like, it was more of a mental thing and he struggled and thought about it a lot. And then, we just saw just significant challenges with throwing. Where with hitting, he said it just happens so fast, you don't really get to like think about it. You're just kind of going with it. But if you're putting pressure on yourself and you're not just out there and feeling the flow, that's going to mess with you. So I think it's great to see Nick Allen going out there and getting those nods and getting some production out of there. And really on some of those, just smacking the laces off of it.
Yeah, on Saturday he got he had a ball that wound up being a double play where he hit a solid shot. I saw the expected batting average was like over 600 and it winds up getting, caught by Jose Altuve and winds up being a double play, but he did his job. And so, that's what you're watching. You're watching these young guys who can grab a job, who can make it exciting to go out there and watch each day. And, when will we go back out and watch and have a big crowd? June 13th for the reverse boycott. So thanks for listening to the Or Hughes podcast. I'm Joe Hughes with my brother Rick. You can find us on Twitter at Vegas Joe Hughes and at Or Hughes. New episodes every Monday. Make sure to like and subscribe.